Well, let's discuss the latest on it then. Our international affairs editor, Ketaban Gorgistani, is joining us here on set. Ketaban, despite the concerns, I mean, it does appear, doesn't it, that no one really tried to stop the Saudi bid. How did that happen?
Well, it's really the culmination of a sort of year-and-a-half-long bid, and mostly an attempt or a push by the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, to just make sure that it would be actually Saudi Arabia who would get that 2034 bid. First of all, the fact that FIFA and Infantino accepted that the 2030 bid would be 3 countries, and actually now 6, including 2 countries in Europe, Spain and Portugal, 1 country in Africa, Morocco, and 3 countries in South America. That, because of the rules of the World Cup, which is that you sort of rotate the continents, made it really basically that it would have to be Asia this time around. Then FIFA gave countries about a 4-week notice that they had to bid, catching a lot of people by surprise. And surprisingly or not, Saudi Arabia was the only one to bid and did it very quickly. And then during the bid campaign, FIFA not really looking too much into some of those concerns that we heard in the story. And just to be safe, they combined the votes for 2030 and 2034, meaning that if you wanted to vote against Saudi Arabia, you also had to vote against the likes of Spain, of Morocco, or of Argentina, which made it even harder. And so of all this criticism, of course, that might remind some of our viewers about what we were discussing when Qatar got it back in 2022, human rights concerns about the workers, the treatment of women, treatment of LGBTQ, and also some more concrete concerns about when this competition is going to be played. Qatar was played in November, December. This might be a problem for Saudi Arabia because in 2034, that's going to be around the time of Ramadan. So it might be in January, and then it creates all sorts of problems for competitions. But when we saw with Qatar might happen again, which is that once the competition starts, it seems that all of these concerns are no longer in the spotlight.
We shall see, we shall see. Saudi Arabia's been investing in sports for years, of course. This, though, I mean, it's the most visible prize, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it is really the end of a very long process, and it really is part of this sweeping project by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia called Vision 2030, which is meant to modernize Saudi society, but also the Saudi economy. And at the core of this major project is the Public Investment Fund, which is a fund that is made specifically for sport, and sport is really at the center of Vision 2030. And you've seen really a spending spree over the past few years since that project was presented, which was back in 2016, 2017. You've seen them investing quite a lot in the domestic league, bringing those aging global stars that were playing in Europe and bringing them to their own domestic league. Of course, the biggest name of all, Cristiano Ronaldo, who is like the superstar of the Saudi league. They also acquired a Premier League team. They've invested heavily in the US's Major League Soccer. But it's not just about football. You've seen the Saudis invest in other sports. They created the Live Golf tournament, which is a sort of competitor to the traditional, historic, US-based PGA Tour. They've attracted also major names from golf, moving from one to the other. They've hosted major events like Formula One Grand Prix just recently, the WATA finals, in tennis, boxing matches, signing also big names to come and promote the country. Lionel Messi, he's the tourism ambassador for Saudi Arabia. Rafael Nadal was the ambassador for tennis in Saudi Arabia. And all of these investments, critics say, are meant to sort of sports wash all of the concerns about human rights. You invest there, you rebrand yourself, you become the place to be for athletes, and therefore people do not talk about the problems in your country.
Sports wash, of course, is the word to pick out there, really, isn't it? Is it just about that, though, or do you think from Saudi Arabia's point of view, they're looking for more than that?
Well, look, there is clearly a part that is sports washing because they want to rebrand themselves. They want to be seen as a equal partner, if you will, in some of these investments. And it's nothing new also to sports wash. We've seen other countries do it. Russia did it with the Sochi Olympics, with the 2018 World Cup. We saw China do it, Qatar, as I mentioned, with the World Cup. But behind that, and one of the reasons for that sports washing is really the economy. What Vision 2030 is all about is exactly that, is that they are realizing that the revenues that they're basing their economy on right now, oil, will at some point dry up in the next 10, 20 years. And they want to figure out where to invest, where to get revenues to compensate for the decrease of those revenues for oil. And basically, this is about the survival of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But they're not the only ones in the region that are doing it. I mentioned, again, Qatar. There's also the UAE. But Qatar, for example, we know here in Paris, they are the owners of Paris Saint-Germain. They've heavily invested in sports. They've also invested in the United States through Monumental Sport. They have a 5% share of Monumental Sport. They own the NBA team, the Washington Wizards, the NHL, the Washington Capitals, and many other teams. And all of these countries that are currently relying on oil revenues are trying to figure out a way of investing in things that can bring them a lot of copyright, a lot of fans, a lot of stadiums filled, a lot of shirts sold, if you will. But to get to that and to make it okay for people to invest and deal with you, you have to go through sports watching. And that's why you have basically the two of them together, a little bit of sports washing in order to go to that economic future.